So, welcome to the garden. So I've brought my, I just use a package box. I'm sure there's better ways of doing this, but this is the way that I found works. So I brought all the bits and pieces out. Got my primer here, got my mask, and garden's looking a little bit forlorn after winter at the moment, but anyway, we shall have to do some work on that at some point. So I'm putting these things down. You probably just want to paint the front of them first, but then the problem is that you'll then want to paint the back of them. Well, I paint the back of them. I like to seal the whole thing just because sometimes things get left in the garage and it can get a little bit damp out there, and I don't like MDF getting damp at all. So so generally what I do is I paint the back of these things first so that the good side is down, and then if we do that, it means that if there is, when I turn them over and do the other side, if there is still a little bit of damp paint or it hasn't properly dried properly, then if there is any if you damage the surface, then it's on the inside and not the outside, because you want to make sure that when you do the outside that you've got a really good smooth surface and that you don't have to start sanding it or anything like that. So it takes a bit longer to dry because it's the 1st of January today, so it's a little bit damp out here. But this is about 10 minutes. Still a little bit damp, but not too bad. And you see that, as I said earlier, if you've got this, if there is anything that's still damp, if it sticks to that a little bit, then it's not going to be a problem, because that's not going to be your final decorative finish. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier is it's really important to make sure you've sprayed the edges, because it's the edges which are going to be affected by dampness in the future. So I didn't manage to get that bit there, but of course I've got to do this side as well. So maybe I'll... Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, so I shall turn these over and then we shall spray the other side. So, just started to rain. Just managed to catch that. Got all of the little bits and pieces indoors now. So, they're all nicely painted. I'm going to let them continue to dry before I do anything with them. Yeah, so we'll just leave them on there. They will dry out, and then that'll be that. Now, I mentioned these things earlier. Now, what I used to do when I first started doing this was I used to spray these all separately, and then glue them together. However, what I found in use is that if you paint these and then glue them together, then the ends tend to drop off. You can see I've got, don't know if you can see that, but basically I've lost the end bits. Or that the axle box covers. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm actually going to glue them together in one section, and then spray them after that. I think that's probably going to be the best way of doing this. And also that means that the problem is when you try and spray these little tiny bits, they go all over the place and it's really difficult. I'm going to try and just glue them all together first. Then we'll seal them from the outside, and we'll see whether that works on this occasion. So I just use a PVA for these. These can be a little bit fiddly, but it's important to get... You don't want massive amounts of glue, but you want sufficient amounts of glue that you're going to cover all of the bits and pieces. I can see that I've already done an error because I've gone over these edges which aren't, I don't know if you can see that. So I put the glue on there, on my little reindeer. Oh, come on. And then going to make sure to get these the right way round with the springs showing on the outside, and then basically then that just sits on there. And I find it's best, I mean you could put all of these together in one go, but I find it's best to get these done, and then you can add the next layer on. So get them stuck together like that, and then once that's dried, then you can come back and put the next layer on. I like to just try and remove the excess glue if there is any, just to make sure it doesn't make it look a mess later. Of course, the other thing is that what I have done in the past is, you saw me sanding these down earlier. Sometimes I've glued these together first and then sanded them down later, because then they're more robust. The problem is that you end up putting more weight on, and therefore you can sometimes break these bits off. So it doesn't really matter which way. The important thing here is to make sure that you've got these exactly lined up. So take a bit of time doing that to make sure it's right, because it does make a difference to what the model looks like later. So I shall do the rest of these. I do love these little reindeers. I think they're so cute. But anyway, that's just me. So I shall continue. So while we're waiting for those to dry, we can start having a look at the chassis. We've got the bits here. Now, you saw me put this together earlier, so quite important to get this bit put together, as I will want to spray this black once I've got this together. So using the same glue, just put that in there, making sure this groove is to the top, and that will go in there. You want to do this quite quickly, because once you've got the glue in these, then they tend to they do swell up a tiny bit, even with the paint on. So we get all of that together, nice and simple. Then it's important to sort of get the glue in these little gaps here. And also in here. We can use plenty of glue on these. It's all going to come out anyway, but and then along these edges, so that they're going to sit on the inside of there, so it's a lot easier to put the glue. Just think about where you put in the glue, so you can make sure that you're going to get the best, the places where it's actually going to stick. Okay, I'm just going to stuff some down there. Right, okay, now hopefully this will fit together easier than it did on the dry run. It was a bit difficult earlier. I didn't quite get it lined up properly for some reason. Right, good, so that's all in there. and then similarly on the ends, make sure we get, now bearing in mind this buffer beam takes all of the load when it's pulling a train, so this joint is especially important to make sure that it doesn't come away, and it shouldn't do, but I have had situations in the past where they have come apart, mainly because some person decided to crash into some of my wagons. But anyway, won't mention that. So it's really important to make sure that these are glued together as best as you can, and fully sealed. We shall do the same on this end. Just make sure we get it all in those joints, and then pop that on there. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Nice and tight. So then you want to make sure that everything is pushed down. Make sure that it's as square and as flat as possible. And then just remove any excess glue, which might cause you a problem with painting later. There's a few bits and pieces around here. Again, it's not important on the underside. I see some people don't even paint the underside of their wagons, but I just don't get it. I always paint the underside because, you know, you do get water in the garden. You can't keep everything dry all the time. While we try our best, there's always going to be that chance. So make sure you've got some glue in all of the joints. As you see, I've painted the underside of these as well when I painted them in the outside, and when I put the final coat on these, then I will be painting the undersides as well. It's just, in my mind, it's just essential. So yeah, so that's all sat together now, and so I shall let that dry out, and hopefully these will have dried out now, so I can put the next layer on these, and we should have a running chassis relatively quickly. So memo to self, remember to turn on the video. So I've just glued on these little tiny sections here. Haven't lost any of them yet. So I've just glued those on. Now don't glue these end caps on at this stage, because relatively soon we are going to have to put these bearings in here, and I think if you put these on too early, then you risk damaging the surface. So so don't put them on now, but glue these on. I did just say, if I'd have actually pressed the record button, it's important to get these are level at the top, because when these go on here, these will go right up to the top of the right to the underside of the running board. So you want to get them as level as possible. They are really difficult. You might need a eyeglass or some glasses to see what you're doing, because they are pretty diddy. And I've not lost any yet. So that's there's always time for me to lose something. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. Right. So all of these have now been sprayed in their constituent parts. Now I've got it on video, I can see there's a little area where I didn't manage to get the paint on, but I'm not too worried about that. It does tend to be these little bits, but because they're all going to be painted yet anyway. And what I should have done is I should have, when I was spraying, I should have dealt with the window frames as well, but I forgot. So they will have to be done later, but there's no great rush for those, because they'll be one of the last things that goes on just before the roof goes on. So so the next job is going to be to, once these have dried, because they're still a little bit wet, is to put these bearings in. These come slightly oiled on the inside, and basically these slot into there, but it's really important to get them exactly right otherwise, and level, otherwise you will have problems with the running gear. So what I'm doing here is just putting these bearings in. Now the bearing, the thinner bit, this is really easy to drop. The thinner bit eventually will sit in this, so they will sit in here like this. But sorry, you couldn't see that. They sit in these little slots. So that's why the thinner bit has to go on the outside. So I'm just placing these in here. Now you'll probably find they won't fit properly, and it's really, as I said earlier, it's really important to get them flat, so that when the bearing goes in from the wheels, there's no binding. So what I will do is, once I've got these all in, we will then go and put them in the vise. Apologies if you can't see this very well, but basically I need to make sure that this is flat, and therefore I just pop it in the vise and very, very gently just push it into place. You'll only hear it click a little bit. This is another reason, well, the main reason why we don't want to put the end cap on here, but you'll see that that means that it's nice and flat all the way around the outside, so that move this now, get a bit more light, so you can see, oh, if it will focus, that is totally flat with the inside of the opening, and that should mean that once we put it on the chassis and put the wheels on, that the wheels should run perfectly. So now we've got those nicely done, I'm going to glue these on the outside of here, and once I've glued those on, then that means the bearing is protected, and then I will paint this side black. I won't do this side because I want the glue to fix directly to the chassis, but I'll paint this side, then they will be done, and then at the same time I will paint this black, so that this is the colour of the chassis, just as I've done with the other ones previously, and then we shall glue these in and put the wheels in, which I shall show you later. Just a quick thing on this, a point on this, when you glue these on, make sure you don't get any glue in this hole, because that's where the bearing goes, and at all costs you need to keep glue out of there, otherwise it will start causing you problems. So on this, just put the glue around the outside of this, reasonably sparingly, and sorry, you probably can't see that, and then obviously plenty on this bit here, but we don't want to get any in where the bearing is. So what I've done here to spray this better is I've just I've popped a hole in the top of my box, and just suspended this, so when I spray it, it will just mean that I can get to all of the parts of it. So hopefully I can just spray it in one go, which will make it a bit quicker rather than trying to spray one side, then let it dry, and then spray the other side. So hopefully that will all work better. So this is all nice and painted. It's all dry now, so it's got a really good coverage. So if we get any moisture underneath or anything like that, then I'm happy that that's all covered now. So the next job is going to be to put the axle boxes on, and as I said the other day, these axle boxes slide into the slots in here, but they're just, so you glue them all together, and then what you need to remember, obviously, is to put the axle in when you're doing this job. Now, as I said, these things do come pre-oiled, but I do, just to make sure that I'm not going to have any problems in the future, put a very, very tiny amount of oil in the axle boxes, just to make sure that there's actually a bit too much coming out of there, but anyway, I can wipe that off. What you obviously want to make sure is that you don't get any of the oil on the MDF, because we want to paint that. So we don't want to paint it. We want to glue that to the chassis. So this is a relatively, just let that finish. There we go. So just gluing these, just putting some glue around the base of these, the little reindeers. Make sure that they're properly covered. Make sure we get plenty on the antlers. And then I put the washers on the ends of the axles, on both ends. And then these just slide into the base of this, and these just basically push on and through the gaps, and then we just need to make sure that these are level at the top, and that they don't protrude above the running plate once they're pushed into place properly. Need to get them level, like so. Take off the excess glue. Sometimes have to use a little stick just to remove the excess glue. I mean, you could leave it on, but I just like to get rid of anything excess. Doesn't really matter in those little gaps. And then we can move on to the other side. Put a bit more glue on those. Plenty on the antlers, and then seal. Make sure you get some glue around the bottom, so that, because if there is any water that gets into these, it's going to be in that area. And then again, this will just push on here. Slide that into place, and again, make sure that none of these bits here protrude above the top of the running plate. Make sure that's fine, and then the wheels should be free running. Sometimes you just have to play around with them a little bit just to make sure that everything is lined up properly, and give it a bit of a run in. And then that's fine. And then I shall do the other end. And then we have our rolling chassis. This one has not come out quite as well as normal. Normally I can just let these run. I've taken these off twice now. Everything seems to be lined up. Even with the wheels in the just in the bearings on their own, they are a little bit tight on this one, so I'm not quite sure why that is. But they are free. They're just not as free as normal. Normally I've been able to put these together and just push them down the track like a toy car, and they'll zoom off into the distance. This one maybe not straight away. I think it just needs to run in. But you know, it runs reasonably. You probably can't see that. So we've got that.